The 2023 season is rapidly reaching its final weeks, and tonight at Carmichael Arena, the North Carolina Tar Heels look to go undefeated at home on senior night as they take on the Air Force Academy Falcons here on ACC Network Extra. Thanks for joining us here in Chapel Hill. I'm Brian Ware, along with All-American gymnast from Georgia, Sydney Sneed. And Sydney, Tar Heels have been excellent at home. Want to bring the house down with an emphatic performance tonight on Senior Day.
Absolutely. The Tar Heels have really had some of their best performances here at Carmichael. Coach Durrani told us this week that they're really looking to continue building off of each performance tonight, and have been focusing on those small details that'll be really crucial heading into postseason. Air Force, on the other hand, is also coming off a season best score, so we're going to see some great gymnastics tonight.
Yeah, last week on Friday against Temple, North Carolina came out with a score of 195.825 against the Temple Owls. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, Sydney, the Air Force Academy came with a score of 195.650 against Sacramento State. So as the 4-minute touch warm-up is concluding, pretty soon our judges will take control of their stations. Carolina, being the home team, will be on vault, and Air Force will be on bars. And in talking with Coach Durrani, North Carolina is making a couple of changes in the vault rotation. And we are starting off with Isabel Schaefer, who is first up for the Tar Heels on vault.
Isabel starts off with a strong tuck full, nailed that landing. What a great leadoff vault for the Tar Heels.
And we talking with Coach Durrani, it was a great change as Schaefer has mostly been competing on bars all year. She did a couple meets on vault as a freshman, and now we transfer over to the bars as Leilani Zander, sophomore out of San Antonio, Texas, is first up for Air Force.
So far, so good on this bar routine. A really pretty shaposh release move, hit handstands. Looked like she was a little bit short on that last one, but does a double tuck dismount with a slight hop forward, but a solid leadoff spot for Air Force as well.
Yeah, Zander set her personal best last week with a score of 9.825 on the bars for Air Force. And coming up next for North Carolina is going to be Gwen Fink, freshman out of Fort Mill, South Carolina. She has been quite the revelation for Coach Durrani.
She's such a steady and consistent athlete, and that's exactly what you want on a team, especially at this point in the season. A nice layout full, has great distance off the table. She'll get a deduction on that landing because there was a hop, but overall a nice vault. One thing the judges are looking for is big amplitude off the vault table, tight body position in the air, legs together, toes pointed. That's the execution piece of it. And then landing in the center of the mat with those shoulders upright, a good distance from the vault table, and a controlled landing. All we want is sticks on everything from both coaches.
Yeah, Gwen did pretty well on their road trip competing in vault for the Tar Heels, setting a season best of 9.825 against the Panthers. As the scores are slowly coming in. And it looks like Zander is going to be credited with a 9.55 in leadoff.
Some of those deductions came from those short handstands, one on the high bar, and then obviously having to take a hop on that dismount landing as well.
Coming up next for Air Force is Ayla McKean, a sophomore out of South Berwick, Maine.
Starts off with a nice handstand into a really nice piked Jaeger, right back down to the low bar. those combinations are really difficult, doing a release move to another release move right in a row. Looked like she just got a little bit caught up on that, so did have to touch her feet. That'll be a deduction. It won't necessarily count as a fall, but she will get a few tenths taken off, at least 3+. But finished well with her double tuck. The good thing is she didn't come off the bar. It's really important that these athletes and these gymnasts in the lineup are fighting for every routine.
And coming up next for the Tar Heels is Paige Prejean, freshman out of Houston, vault specialist.
Huge vault for Paige. Wow, you could just see the height off the table from that vault, and a really nice landing to finish it as well. Again, they're all going for the stuck landings in the minimal deductions.
Yeah, Paige Prejean, they got their personal best when they traveled up to New Hampshire, the score of 9.825, and it looks like third up for Air Force is going to be Madison Carlisle, a freshman out of Atlanta, Georgia. This Air Force team, a very young team. 16 freshmen and sophomores, only 5 upperclassmen.
That's really exciting to see a younger team. It just shows the potential that they have in the next coming years. I think that's a great call out.
Yeah, it's going to be a key time for head coach Jennifer Green, who is in her 3rd season as head coach of Air Force.
Really big shaposh release move into that bail. A little bit of feet separation when she hit the bar. And a little bit short on that handstand. Again, that's something that the judges are looking for, those handstands on top of the bar, but a nice double tuck dismount to finish off that routine as well.
So Air Force gets back on good terms, and now Julia Noer, the all-around specialist for North Carolina, who did very well last week against Temple.
We'll see a huge vault out of Julia. Really big fall. Too much power on that. You can see the distance she got from the table, straight down the middle, but unfortunately had to take that big hop. Too much power, it's a great problem to have, but at this point in the season, they're really wanting to hone in on those stuck landings. So unfortunately, that'll be a deduction, but a really, really nice vault.
Yeah, Julia Noer last week had a score of all-around score of 39.275 against the Temple Owls.
Coach Durrani had nothing but great things to say about Julia when we talked with her this past week.
Yeah, and looking at the score, it's going to be a 9.7 for Noer. And we'll talk about it, during the broadcast, but the Eagle, the conference that North Carolina is in, is very competitive, with obviously the Tar Heels being the regular season champions for back-to-back years. And there's going to be a good bit of jockeying for the team championship, as well as potentially the all-around. There's at least 4 gymnasts that could win the all-around in a couple weeks when the Eagle Championship is in New Hampshire.
Absolutely, and I think big picture, looking at the team and the team finals, it's great experience that they've had all throughout the season competing against all these other teams in their conference. All these teams are doing such a great job this year and are building up just like they're supposed to. So they're going to be at the top peaking point by the Eagle Conference Championships, which will be a really exciting meet to watch.
Looks like 4th up for the Air Force Academy is going to be sophomore Valandra Broshai out of Round Rock, Texas. She was the MPSF, the Mountain Pacific Gymnast of the Week, setting personal bests or season bests in all events. She will also be competing against Julia Noer in the all-around.
A nice bar routine so far. A little bit of form separation on a couple of the skills. But a really nice double layout dismount. Almost had that stick. Had to take the slight step back. Again, the execution is going to be huge throughout the whole competition, but on an event like uneven bars especially, we really want those feet glued together. Good form, pointed toes.
Coming up next for Carolina is Kaya Forbes. She won last week on vault.
Huge 1.5. Really nice vault from Kaya. Again, too much power. That vault is a 10-0 start value, the 1.5, because of the difficulty. So it is a blind landing, which makes it a lot more difficult. You don't see too many of those. That explains a little bit why she had that big step forward. So unfortunately, that's going to be a deduction, but it'll still be a good score because it does start from a 10-0. Just like we saw Julia Noer, a 9-7 with that huge hop back. It shows you the potential and how good the rest of the vault was, because really the biggest deductions are going to be on those landings, which are easy things to fix.
Looks like Broshai with a score of 9.6 on the bars. And it looks like fifth up is going to be one of their seniors, Amber Bowl. Set a personal best a couple weeks ago with a 9-9 on the uneven bars against UC Davis and Denver.
Beautiful handstand to Shaposh for that release move. Bail handstand right on top of the bar. You can see just the extension in the lines and the toe point. Really pretty gymnastics. Into a double layout. Came up a little short. Couldn't get that rotation around on the double layout. So that dismount will be the biggest deduction of that routine.
Finally, you have Lali Dekanoitsa, sophomore from Matthews, North Carolina, first team All-Eagle last year on vault.
Huge fall, basically stuck that. What a great vault. You can see the great technique she has all the way throughout the entire vault, from the horse off to the table. Beautiful extensions throughout, form, execution, everything, and broke out for that landing.
Yeah, and Lali Dekanoitsa, she's in position to possibly get another first team All-Eagle on vault. And this has to be tying her season best. Yes, it is. That's a 9-9 for Lali Dekanoitsa on vault.
Very well deserved. The Tar Heels had really strong vaults all the way throughout. We saw a couple of landings here and there, but still, you can see that when those landings are stuck, they're going to have a huge vault score.
Sixth member for Air Force is going to be Grace Nelson out of Frisco, Texas. Mostly competes on vault and bars for the Falcons.
Starts off with a Shaposh release move as well, right down into that bail. They're really going to be looking for a stuck dismount. Another blind double front landing. That was under-rotated, so she had to hop back. That will be a deduction. But it's a nice, solid hit bar.
It's a nice routine, and it allows them to drop McKean's score.
Absolutely. At this point in the season, like we've talked about, your athletes in your lineup should be very consistent. It's about fine-tuning those little details. The execution, the handstands, the stuck landings. And we'll say it over and over again throughout the rest of this competition, but it really does make a difference. And heading into postseason, that's where you expect those scores to go up, and it comes from the smaller details.
North Carolina did really well on vault in their first rotation with a score of 49. We mentioned Dekanoitsa's 9-9. Paige Prejean. They had an amazing vault with a 9.85, the top 2 for the Tar Heels. And it looks like Nelson's score is in. It's going to be a 9.725. And it looks like we will have an exhibition performance as well.
Performing an exhibition on bronze for the Air Force Academy, Huntley Green.
It's really nice to have these exhibition routines as well. It shows you the depth of each team and puts you in a pressure situation, which is great experience.
Yeah, as we we'll get to talk about Air Force with some of their exhibition performances. This team, right now, their NQS score is around 194.195, but we had a meet earlier when we saw the Tar Heels face off against Yale, and Air Force competes at not just the Division I level, but at the USA Gymnastics level, which that level of competition is available for schools that don't offer as many full scholarships for these athletes. And so, with under 8 scholarships, they've actually done well the past couple years under Coach Green. And we'll step aside. We'll talk more about Air Force. One rotation is down. North Carolina, 49 on the vault. Air Force, 48.125 on the bars. The teams will swap sides. And we'll be back in a couple minutes. You're watching College Gymnastics here on ACC Network Extra. Is complete here at Carmichael Arena, North Carolina, with a score of 49 on the vault. Air Force with a score of 48.125 on the bars, and both teams will swap. Brian Ware here with Georgia All-American Sydney Sneed. Sydney, Carolina must be really happy with that great start on vault, that score of 49.
I think the Tar Heels are definitely going to be excited and happy with that 49 on vault. Like we mentioned earlier, really big vaults that we saw, great height on the table, really good execution, just a little bit on those landings, which is something that they're definitely going to want to work on this week, but just showed you the potential that they have for even pushing that 49.3 plus, which will be crucial in the postseason.
And now they're getting ready to head over to bars, which is their best event so far this year. They have been killing it. NQS score of 49.2 on the bars, which is 21st in the country. And with the lineup that they have, they've been able to consistently put up some good scores.
Their bar lineup is rock solid, and we've seen it continue to build week after week. And again, that's exactly what you want at this point. Just the execution that they have, the good form, their bar lineup's on a roll. So we're definitely going to see a high team score from this event.
Meanwhile, for Air Force, they're heading up over to the vault. Their NQS score this year at about a 48.4. But they do have a couple of good gymnasts in this rotation. Ayla McKean, who we'll see in the all-around, looking to correct her mistake that she made on bars. And it looks like she's going to be first for Air Force.
Air Force is really going to want to continue to keep the ball rolling. They had a solid first event. Obviously coming off 2 back-to-back high 195 scores. So they're going to want to do that again tonight. First vault, Yurchenko full. Had a good bit of height off the table, but couldn't quite get the rotation around. So she did have a deep, deep squat. I'm not sure if she touched her hand on the ground. That would be a fall, which is a 5/10 deduction.
And we'll transition over to the bars with Jamie Shearer, junior out of Apex, North Carolina, leading things off. Season best of a score of 9.825. in the meet against Yale.
She's been a really steady leadoff for this bar lineup. Beautiful straddle Jaeger release move. Right down to the low bar. Little feet separation when she hit the bar on that bail. But nice handstand on the high bar. And then a huge double layout into a stick. She's pumped about it. Great first routine.
It sets the table for Carolina the rest of the way. Coming up next for Air Force is going to be Sarah Willis, freshman out of Crystal Lake, Illinois. She's done a little bit of everything this year. Did some meets on floor this year and also on vault.
And does a nice tuck full, almost had that stick, but that's a solid vault for them.
And a solid recovery for the Falcons.
She definitely is gonna get them back on track, which is really important for this vault lineup right now. They're gonna wanna drop that first score. So really good job.
And a 9.85, a season best for Jamie Shearer, leading off for Carolina on the bars, tying her career high.
A 9.85 from a leadoff spot is an absolutely great place to be in for the rest of this bar lineup. Really sets the tone and allows the next couple of athletes and gymnasts to just blow it out.
Julia Noer is going to be next. Sophomore all-arounder who is the Regional Gymnast of the Year as a freshman.
She's a really strong and aggressive bar swinger. You can see the power she just has on all of her skills.
And talking with Coach Durante, her process is very direct.
Absolutely. Coach Durante said how Julia loves to just challenge herself. She shows up every day trying to get better and is so coachable.
Here comes
Look
the
at that
dismount.
huge dismount. You can see the height rise as she let go. Had a slight step backwards on that landing, but a nice overall routine.
Valandra Broshai is going to be next for the Falcons. On vault, sophomore set her season best 9.775 last week against Sacramento State.
Big Yurchenko full, lands right in the center of the mat and had a pretty good landing. Didn't have to take too big of a hop. So again, they've reset, starting to continue to build the rest of this lineup. They're doing a good job.
And, you know, before we stepped away, we were talking about how Air Force, you know, they compete in the MPSF, so they're competing against schools like San Jose State, UC Davis, Sacramento State in terms of conference play. You know, this is one of their biggest trips, going to the East Coast. But, you know, this team is, you know, as we said, competes at the USA Gymnastics level, which is for schools that don't always have or aren't able to give scholarships to every athlete that wants to compete at gymnastics that they recruit. But they've done well the last couple years under head coach Jennifer Green, finishing third in 2021 and second in 2022 behind Texas Women's University. As third up for the Tar Heels is Gwen Fink.
Starts out with a huge straddle Jaeger. Back down to that bail handstand. She's really going to be looking for a stuck dismount. Was a little short on that handstand. Let's see if she can make it up on this double layout. Really nice body position in the air on that. Had to take the slightest hop back, but a nice bar routine. She's such a solid competitor, and she's really been pushing herself to work for those details in a collegiate bar lineup. So it's really nice to see a nice hit routine from her.
Coming up next is sophomore Gabriela Mejia out of Simi Valley, California.
And a nice Yurchenko full. She did pike down on that landing. You want to see the body position stay straight the whole way through to that controlled landing. So the pike down and the hop back will be the deductions there. But right now, Air Force is looking to drop that first vault.
Yeah, she had her season best with a score of 9.75, both this year and last year. A score of 9.825 for Gwen Fink. And coming up next for the Tar Heels is going to be Elizabeth Colton, senior out of Durham, North Carolina.
Elizabeth Colton.
She has such beautiful lines. I talk about this all the time, but truly is the textbook definition of what you want, those handstands, toe point. I mean, beautiful. You can see the extension in her whole body. A nice reverse hack release move. Every handstand has just been on top of the bar. Her feet don't even come apart. So far, a really nice routine. Let's see if she can get this stick, double tuck. And she does.
Yes,
wow.
she can.
What a bar routine for the senior.
Elizabeth Colton, one of 7 seniors being recognized today as her teammates mob her, asking for that 10. We'll see what the judges give her.
I'd say that's a good routine to end on in Carmichael.
Kylie Green, the freshman out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma, is going to be next for Air Force.
Another Yurchenko full. Slight pike down on that landing as well, but covered it. Did not have to take too big of a hop. She had good height off the table, but couldn't quite get the vault turned around in time. In a perfect world on vault, you want to approach the table straight on, with straight arms, pushed off, great body position in the air, great execution, and then breaking out of those landings with your chest up and no movement.
So far for Air Force recently, Broshai 9.7, Mejia 9.7, as Lali Dekanoitsa is up next for the Tar Heels after Elizabeth Colton just got a 9.9.
A fantastic routine. We're gonna see another one from Lali here. So far, a stunning bar routine. Nice handstands on top of the bar, just needs to get this stick. Nice double layout. Almost had that, a small hop backwards. But otherwise, I didn't see too many deductions on that routine.
Me neither. As we said, she's set the program record with a 9.975. And she's done it 3 times this year.
Absolutely, she's tied for 8th in the nation on this event. That speaks for itself. That's a huge, huge statistic to be proud of.
Amber Bowl is next for Air Force on the vault.
A nice Yurchenko full, slightest hop backwards, but covered that really well. She had a really big presentation at the end. That's a solid vault for Air Force.
Looks like it's going to be a 9.925 for Dekanoitsa.
Hey, that hop, if that hop was a stick, that might have been a 10.
That might have been.
Wow, so far, so good for the Tar Heels.
The lowest score is Julia Noer with a 9.65. Like this rotation so far for Carolina, you're talking about elite level, you know, at the college level. You know, some of the best teams consistently can get around high 9.8s, low 9.9s.
Right, and I think it's important UNC, for example, bars is their strength, so it's important to emphasize on this event.
And Isabel Schaefer, an excellent anchor. Her personal best of 9.925.
Huge straddle Jaeger. Isabel also has beautiful form on this event. It really makes a difference from the judge's view to see those tight handstands in great execution. She just needs to get this stick. Really nice dismount. Almost had it, had to squat a little bit and take a step back. So that'll probably be her biggest deduction as well. It goes back to those sticks that we were talking about.
Got an exhibition performance for Air Force.
Oh, Yurchenko full. Nice cover on that landing. It looked like it was a little bit crooked, but she saved that very well.
And it looks like we also have an exhibition performance coming up for the Tar Heels as Schaefer scores in. It's a 9.725.
Performing an exhibition on bars for Carolina, Taylor Schultz.
Taylor Schultz competing in exhibition performance. Sophomore from San Antonio, Texas, the transfer from Brown.
A big piked Jaeger. You could see she caught that by her fingertips. Very impressive. It's crazy the air sense that these athletes have because she had to reach for that. So really nice to see her push through that routine. Came up a little short on that dismount, but could have easily come off the bar in that release move, and she held on.
And with the scores in, it's a 49.225 for North Carolina on bars. They're just meeting their standards of what's expected of them. 2 rotations are down. You see the score, North Carolina 98.225, Air Force 96.525. Both teams meeting expectations as we get set for the 3rd rotation. Tar Heels will go to beam, Air Force will go to floor. And we'll be right back with more college gymnastics here on ACC Network Extra. Stay tuned. Two rotations are complete here as North Carolina has a score of 98.225 as they head to the beam. Air Force with a score of 96.525 as they head to floor. Brian Ware along with Sydney Sneed. Sydney, as Carolina makes their transition to beam, we were talking with Coach Durante about, especially the Eagle Championships coming up in a couple weeks when they'll head up to New Hampshire. And they know that if things kind of stay where they are, they're going to be, competing in that second group of 4, most likely competing on beam first. So
yep.
This is going to be, a key spot looking at, their team scores over, so far this season. This is the one where they have the ability to improve the most.
Heading into Eagle Conference Championships, obviously it's a big deal, but one thing Coach Durante said is that there's no specific expectations for this team. She's really excited about them just staying within their normal and not losing sight of just enjoying the competing aspect of gymnastics. And I think part of that competition mindset is, hey, if you're starting on beam, take it and run with it. It's a great opportunity for them to really emphasize their beam ability. And we've seen it time and time again at competitions. Their solid beam routines and how they've continued to build week after week. So I think after talking with her, it seemed like she was really excited about that.
Yeah, and obviously the beam lineup kind of needs that connective tissue. You know, someone, as we said, the first, goes first to set the table. Someone that has the confidence, if someone in front of them were to take a fall, that they can step up and just execute. And obviously with Carolina going first, I feel that one of the gymnasts, one of the athletes that does that really well is going up first is Hannah Nam. She does really well as one of those senior leaders that can dictate Carolina's terms.
Yeah, and I always like to say, beam is a make or break event. It could be easily the hardest event in gymnastics because it's such a mentality type of game almost. You have to be so mentally tough on this event, especially for that first gymnast up. That is easily the toughest spot to be in. Your first gymnast up on the balance beam, because their job is to hit a nice, consistent routine every single time. No pressure, but it is a lot of pressure. And so that's why it's really important to mention and call these things out, because it is a big deal. And Hannah Nam, as we can see, she's the perfect gymnast for Tar Heels to do this. She's very solid and she's dependable, and that's exactly what you want in your leadoff.
Yeah, she set personal bests on the balance beam when Carolina needed it most last year, which was at regionals, with a score of 9.9 so far this season. That score was a 9.825 in the match against GW. And senior from Westchester, Ohio, gets us going with this third rotation.
And to go back to you saying Coach Durrani talked about them possibly starting on beam, if it was me, I personally love starting on beam because you kind of have just a mental toughness attitude, then you get it done and it's like, hey, we got the hardest one out of the way, now we're gonna be on a roll. So
yeah, and she did really well with her aggro series, that handspring layout.
Nice switch leap into that straddle, quarter switch leap combination.
Yeah, great crowd here at Carmichael Arena on senior day, the final meet for the Tar Heels here in Chapel Hill.
You can see she did that cat leap into the side aerial, and her feet were almost off the beam, and wow, did she cover that. Getting ready for her dismount now. A round off, 1.5.
Stuck.
Nailed it. That's really what these coaches want to see in these athletes. A strong routine like that with that stuck landing. It's like an exclamation point.
And I believe it is Ayla McKean who is first up for Air Force on floor. Sophomore who's been competing in all around all year, just looking to get going.
She starts out with a round up by handspring double pike. Her chest was down on that landing, so she did have to take a step forward. So that'll be a slight deduction. But she had a lot of power, which floor is a power event. It's a chance to be able to show that off, as well as an artistry event. It is important that you're doing good dance as well in the routine. That's something that the judges also look at. Her next pass, a front full into a front layout.
She set her season best with a score of 9.8. She's done that multiple times this year.
a nice start for Air Force.
And there you see the score for Hannah Nam, a 9.85 to lead things off for the Tar Heels on beam. As Gwen Fink is going to be next up for Carolina. Freshman out of Fort Mill, South Carolina.
On beam for Carolina, Gwen Fink.
Has been able to get some consistent scores on the beam. Season high of 9.85.
She just makes everything look so easy. This is an event that she's just very fluid on. You can just see it through the extension in her legs, in her arms, all the way through to her fingertips. Beautiful switch leap to a split jump combination. Very difficult. She had a slight wobble on that. But on those switch leaps, the judges are looking for that 180-degree split. Her acro series, a back handspring, back layout, no problem there. Beautifully stuck. A nice front aerial. That's a tough skill because it is forward, so it's a blind landing. Into her back handspring step out, 1.5 dismount, nicely done. Slight deduction on that landing, but a really pretty routine.
Yeah, she definitely gritted it out after setting her season best earlier in the year. She's trying to build it back up as we now have Brianna Carswell out of Phoenix, Arizona. She's mostly been a beam and floor specialist for Air Force.
You can see her teammates doing the routine behind her. That's always fun to watch. Getting ready for her first tumbling pass. A front layout into a double tuck. Very unique first tumbling pass. We don't usually see that front layout. We usually see a front tuck, so really cool.
Her personal best was last year with a score of 9.9.
She's got some cool dance moves in this routine. Getting ready for this next tumbling pass. Really big double tuck. She pulled that landing, or pulled that double tuck a little bit too much. So that was why she had that squatty landing. So that's gonna be a couple tenths off, but a solid routine for Air Force.
Hallie Thompson is next. Senior out of Waxhaw, North Carolina. She has mostly competed in beam this year after missing all of last year with an injury in the first meet of the 2022 season.
She starts out with a beautiful triple series, very difficult back handspring, back layout, step out. We don't see too many triple series into her leap combination.
And she has been the model of consistency. Mostly hanging around that 9.775. We said her return in that meet against Yale, she set that season high of 9.825. And that was quite an emotional moment for her coming back from that injury.
She's had beautiful dance as well. She's very sharp into her dismount, a round off 1.5. Nice dismount, great height on that 1.5. So far, so good for the Tar Heels on beam.
Coming up next for Air Force on floor is going to be Gabriela Mexia. It's like a score of 9.7 for Brianna Carswell. Mexia is mostly competed on vault and floor. She had a 9.7 on vault and is looking to increase with a season best on floor last week, 9.75.
One thing that's been fun about this Air Force team is that they're all really into these dance moves and floor routines of the athlete that's competing. So that's been fun to watch. They're kind of like in their own little bubble. On floor exercise, the judges are also looking for that 180-degree split on those leap combinations. Second pass, a 1.5 front layout. Nice landing on that. And floor it's just an endurance event. It's really hard to do all of the leap combinations and the tumbling. So that's really something that these athletes work hard at in the fall, is gearing up for the endurance aspect of this event.
So next up is going to be the All-American on beam, Elizabeth Colton.
Just like we saw on bars with that form and execution, we're gonna see the same thing on beam. Clean lines, very fluid. Just beautiful feet to toe point all throughout the routine. Back handspring, back layout, solid landing.
Free flowing.
Absolutely. She definitely makes it look easy. You can see the extension on that switch side. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so far her
front aerial into that beautiful split jump. That might have been over a 180.
Yeah, so far her season best is a 9.95, and last year she set a personal record 9.975.
And we can see why. So far, she hasn't moved on this routine, just has the dismount left.
Yeah, so far she's in position to be a first-team All-Eagle on the beam with this dismount.
And a nice gainer full to end that routine. I think that was a stick.
That was pretty close to a stick.
It looked like it from our view.
Coming up next for Air Force is going to be Kylie Green, freshman out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. She has been one of Air Force's best first-year athletes, been a two-time MPSF Conference Gymnast of the Week, Freshman of the Week. And we talked about how certain athletes, you know, when you go through your routine, you're the model of consistency. 5 times this year, Kylie Green has had a score of 9.825.
That's a really nice score to be able to count on in any lineup. That's something that you want to see from a coach's standpoint, is an athlete that can consistently put up good scores. Something that the judges are looking for on floor as well. I know I mentioned the split combinations, those being a full 180 degrees, but really powerful and dynamic tumbling with those controlled landings. You are allowed to take a lunge without a deduction, but if you take one forward, that's going to show under rotation, so that might be a deduction. Wow, really nice first pass.
Nice first pass. One of the judges noticed a step out.
Was she out of bounds? Did they call it?
Yes,
yeah, she was close. Again, it's that crazy air sense. You know when you're almost out of bounds. She did try to save it. A nice right handspring Rudy for that second tumbling pass. Switch side into a straddle fall. Getting ready for her last tumbling pass. A 1.5 to the front layout. Nice landing on that. Overall, a good routine. Unfortunately, she went out of bounds on that first run.
Fifth up for Carolina is going to be Julia Noer. Looking to try to kickstart her meet here so far. 9.7 on vault and 9.65 on bars. But she was able to set a season best last week against Temple with that 9.9.
She starts out with a huge back handspring back layout, acro series. Great amplitude throughout this entire beam routine. She's also a very dynamic gymnast. Huge front toss. I think I said it last week, but it looked like she was just sitting in a chair. That's how high up she was on that skill. It almost looks like she's tumbling on the floor, but she's on a 4-inch beam instead. Really nice leap combination there. And so far, this routine has looked like a piece of cake for her. She just has the dismount left.
Yeah, Julia Noer also in a potentially considered first team All-Eagle on beam with her dismount. Tiny hop, but
that's going to be a big score.
Keep things going for Carolina. They have been very consistent on beam so far. Two best scores from Hannah Nam and Elizabeth Colton with 9.85s.
They're definitely going to be feeling good about their lineup tonight.
Valandra Broshai is next up for Air Force on floor, the reigning MPSF Gymnast of the Week.
I've loved watching these floor routines, though. The dance and the choreography has been great. Something that people forget is choreography takes hours and hours for these gymnasts to learn. Pre-season, she starts out with a nice 2.5 twist, which is really difficult because of that blind forward landing. Another nice second tumbling run. Front handspring double full. She's had some difficulty in these tumbling passes, which is always really fun to see. Now getting ready for her last pass. A front full to a front layout. No problem on that landing. A nice routine.
Probably one of Air Force's best. Air Force has been very consistent on floor, getting around that 9-7 score from all 4 of their athletes. And Taylor Schultz is going to be next for North Carolina.
This is a great opportunity for Taylor just to block everything out and do her normal great beam routine. There's no pressure. There were no falls in the lineup. So she's in a really good place.
Yeah, she set her season best last week with a 9.825. As we said, the transfer from Brown University was first team all-conference on the beam.
Back handspring, back layout. Nice acro series, no wobble on that. Switch leap into that wolf jump. We don't see too many wolf jumps anymore in collegiate gymnastics. That full turn, the easiest skill in the routine, but can also be the hardest sometimes. It always comes to get you when you least expect it.
Gets set for her dismount.
Wow.
Stuck landing.
Side aerial to a 1.5. That's a very difficult dismount. She made that look easy. What a nice routine and ending to that Tar Heel beam lineup. Wow.
Carolina, no falls to take. And a very good rotation on the beam as we get set now for Gianna Martina, freshman out of Littleton, Colorado. As you see, Valandra Broshai, best score so far on floor, the 9.8. But Gianna Martina was the Colorado State champ in floor exercise in 2019, training with the Colorado Gymnastics Institute.
She starts with a 1.5. Looked like her punch, she just didn't quite get it, so had to put her hands down. And took that step out of bounds. So unfortunately, that'll be a decent bit off. It'll be a fall with the out of bounds. Sometimes I think we forget that all these twists and flips in the air, it's hard. Sometimes you know, kind of get lost in the middle of a skill. But ends with a Rudy straddle jump. Finished off that routine well. She's not going to be too happy about that first pass, so it probably will be the score that they drop.
So Air Force has gone through their 6 competitive athletes for floor, as Carolina will have an exhibition performance on the balance beam. We're just awaiting the score delivered for Taylor Schultz, as it's going to be Bree Greenlow, one of the seniors who we will see on floor. And it looks like the score is going to be in for Taylor Schultz. It's a 9.825.
And that's a good score for the Tar Heels. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was a little bit higher, because it was such a solid routine.
Yes, with Bree Greenlow has been part of the beam rotation for most of her career at Carolina. She set her personal best last year at the regional meet, with a score of 9.875.
The regional meet, one of the toughest ones of the whole year, so to set Your best scorer there is definitely something to be proud of. She does that can't spring back layout acro series. A nice cat leap to side aerial as well. All of these acro series and combinations and these leap series that we see are all requirements to be able to have that 10-0 start value. I know we've talked about it a bunch before, but just a reminder that that 10-0 is where you want to start, but you don't just automatically start there. You have to be able to build that bonus to get to that point. But a nice round off 1.5 dismount to end that routine for Bree.
So Carolina is going to be done with their beam rotation, and they have another solid score, a score of 49.050, which is giving them a team score of 147.275.
That's definitely something that they're going to be happy about right now. They're right on track for a good overall score. They've had a 49 on every event so far, ending on floor. They have a great opportunity to continue to build on that as well.
Air Force does have an exhibition performance ready and waiting, but the judges here on floor are having a conference, especially after trying to score Gianna Martina's floor routine. Major discrepancy, so
it's a little bit of a waiting game.
Yeah, it's the waiting game, but obviously this is the score that will be dropped, but you know, it's part of the routine that judges have to go through their routine and make sure that they score it promptly, you know, accurately to the best of their ability. And obviously that first pass is going to be the major issue.
And it sometimes gets tricky because you have to have certain requirements on floor as well. So that first pass being a combination, she was doing 2 skills in a row. She'll lose that connection on top of going out of bounds, on top of the fall as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be tricky to navigate what those deductions are and to make sure that they're on track with the code of points as well, which is resulting in them taking a little bit longer. But the waiting game, it's always a great mental test as well. It's never fun to wait too long.
So the score is going to be in as Alexa Cabot, sophomore out of Monument, Colorado. Was a Colorado state champ at level 9 in multiple events. And I just want to ask you, in terms of how you progressed up through the levels. Obviously, I'm just mentioning level 9, level 10, Junior Olympic. How did you, training here in North Carolina, how did you go about that process of wanting to compete at the best that you could at, whether you're at the age level or a little bit younger?
Yeah, I think club gymnastics, it's so difficult, and you put in so much work, so many hours every single day, trying to be the best that you can. It takes a lot of work, so credit to all these gymnasts for going through that as well. It's really about pushing yourself to climb those levels, learn those new skills, because you can't just, say, hey, I want to be a level 9, so I'm a level 9 now. You have to get those certain skills that are required for that level, and it does take time. And you see a lot of times level 8, level 9, level 10, you're at those levels for a couple years before you progress.
And obviously, Cabot had a very good first pass.
Looks like she's having fun with this routine.
There's the chance for head coach Jennifer Green to see if any changes need to be made at this late junction of the season.
That was it was a good double tuck in the air. Couldn't quite grasp that landing. Her chest was down.
So far, she's gotten the best out of her gymnasts as Alexa Cabot finishes her routine here on floor. Coach Green has been an assistant coach at several schools, including her last stint at the University of Iowa, as you see her right now on your screen. And as we said earlier in the broadcast, this Air Force team loves competing at the USA Gymnastics level. They've been this close to getting that national championship. And now they will head over to the beam. Carolina will be on floor. The scores, North Carolina 147.275, Air Force 145.075. We'll be back in a couple minutes with the fourth rotation here on ACC Network Extra. Back here at Carmichael Arena, North Carolina with a score of 147.275 after a score of over 49 on the beam. They will now move over to floor. Air Force score of 145, just over 145. Brian Ware along with Sydney Sneed. A great crowd here at Carmichael Arena for Senior Day. And for North Carolina, everybody's really come and performed exceptionally well. And keeping this up, if they were able to get that 49 score, maybe just over a 49, they are in a great position to possibly have their best score at home this year, which is what we said at the top. Try to go out with a bang, and they're doing it right now.
Exactly, and I think it's important just to point out how confident they've looked this entire competition. Heading into postseason, they're in a great spot. Like you said, they have a great opportunity here on floor to be able to get to their highest score all season. Floor is a great and strong event as well for them to end on. So I think we're going to see some big tumbling. They just really need to fine-tune those landings in order to get that 49 plus.
And if they can, get a really good mark here, this will help their NQS score that they can then take on the road. As look at their schedule, their final regular season meet will be next Friday. They'll go to Columbia, Missouri to take on some SEC opposition in the Missouri Tigers, who are currently ranked, I believe they're in the teens. Yeah, they are 14th in the country. But they also have, some solid competition as well against Ball State. They're in a quad meet. Ball State's kind of in the same position that Carolina is, kind of hovering around that 30th rank, which is, good to qualify for regionals, but still got to stay on your toes. And they will also take on Southeast Missouri State as well. So a quad meet to finish to get them prepared for the setting that will be Eagle on March 19th.
And Missouri is a great place to do that. When talking with Coach Durrani this past week, she mentioned that she's so excited to go down to an SEC school. They're obviously going to draw a big crowd as well. So, like you said, great preparation heading into that Eagle Conference. They're going to be more than prepared.
And they always are able to, even with Coach Durrani, and we were able to talk with, it's Alumni Day here as well, as the former Carolina gymnastics coach who spent 40 years building this program, Coach Galvin, is just over to our left with some of the alumni that are here celebrating Senior Day here. They were always made a point to travel to a big, big school, whether they went to Georgia, whether they went to Alabama, they went to Auburn, they went to Oklahoma. So that Missouri atmosphere is going to be prime for North Carolina next week, as Air Force is getting us started here.
And going back to the crowd, I think we're going to see that here in Carmichael soon. You can see already huge strides that have been taken, and I know that's something Coach Durrani has done a great job with as well, just building this program. So definitely something to keep an eye out for in the near future.
Good fight from Carswell, staying on the beam. said, one of the upperclassmen for Air Force out of Phoenix, mostly competed on beam and floor this year.
Really nice jump series there.
And she set her personal best last year at the USA Gymnastics National Championships.
I love the height on these leap combinations. A nice back handspring. Gainer full off the side. Stuck that. A solid lead-off routine. The biggest deduction coming from that acro series, but great fight. It's way better than a fall.
Yes, as Hannah Nam is going to be first up for Carolina on the floor. Set her season best last Sunday at Pitt. The score of 9.825.
This is a great chance for the Tar Heels to really get the crowd and the fans involved into this floor lineup and into these routines. A nice double pike to start off this routine.
She's got a lot of confidence. Remember we said in beam, she let it off, and she had one of the best scores for Carolina with that 9.85.
And one thing Coach Durrani said about her is she is the loudest voice in the gym and is always just a huge encourager for her teammates. And we can see why. Now getting ready for her last tumbling pass. Round off 1.5 into the front full. Looked like she almost was gonna come up a little bit short of rotation, but was really hard to tell. She covered that well. A really nice routine to start off this Tar Heels lineup.
Valandra Broshai is gonna be next for Air Force. She said the Conference Gymnast of the Week at a score of tying her her career best of 9.85 last week against Sacramento State.
She starts with a nice back handspring, back layout. Really solid stick on that. A nice leap combination. At this point, I know we've talked about heading into postseason, but these routines are pretty much second nature to these athletes. They've done it so many times, whether it's actual routines in the gym or visual routines. And so that's why when we talk about these small details that they're focusing on, it is so important, because the routine, that's a given. They already know how to do it. It's really just focusing on those tiny things that can be difficult but do add up to that final score. And in gymnastics, every 10th counts. Really nice round off, 1.5 stuck dismount. Really nice beam routine.
Scores in for Hannah Nam. Season best, 9.85. She has set the table for Carolina, both on beam and now on floor, with two of her best scores this year.
And I think that is something that
it's the
just speaks
contagiousness of senior day.
It is, but it speaks volumes to Hannah as an athlete as well. I mean, leading off with a 9.85 is not an easy task, and she has taken that and run with it, truly. Fantastic job by her.
Gwen Fink is next, the freshman.
She opens with a nice double pike, had too much power on that, which again, a nice problem to have, but it'll be a little bit of a deduction. A nice 2.5. Very difficult skill. But you can just see the power in all of her tumbling. For her last pass. 1.5 to a front layout. Really nice and fun floor routine to watch.
I just want to ask you, which type of skill do you think is tougher? The flip parts, if you do a tumble, or the twists? Because, you know, obviously some of the better gymnasts usually go for that 2.5 twists on those tumbling passes than, you know, a double pike or a double tuck.
That is a great question, and to answer it in the most basic way, it really is dependent on the athlete, because some athletes are way better at twisting, and if that's a strength of yours, then absolutely all day long. Do those 2.5s, do those triple twists. I mean, they're gorgeous, but then those dynamic and big tumblers, you're gonna wanna see those double backflips and those maybe like full ins.
Yes.
So I would say it's just dependent on the athlete, you know? For me personally, I was better at the flipping part, so I would much rather do double tucks, double pikes all day long than twisting.
Kylie Green is next up for Air Force.
A nice layout step out combination there.
Looking to keep it going for Air Force. They've done pretty well so far on the beam with a score of 9.8 from Broshai.
And she gets that stuck round off 1.5, dismount. I did say sticks are contagious.
Yes.
They really are.
And with the way that, as we mentioned, Air Force has multiple athletes competing in the all-around. Obviously, Julie Noer's competing at her best, at her favorite routine on floor. But that all-around title today could be up for grabs. Broshai has been very consistent. And I think it's going to have to take a big score for Julie Noer to win all-around tonight, as Bree Greenlow is stepping up for the Tar Heels. You see a score of 9.775 for Gwen Fink. Bree, the senior out of Sewanee, Georgia.
She's just so sharp in her dance and her tumbling. It really just shows all the confidence that she has.
Tied her season best last Sunday against Pitt with a 9.85. Double pike to begin.
The landing came up a little quick for her, but she covered it up well. That will be a deduction. So it's going to be important for these next passes to have good controlled landings. Front tuck into a 2.5. Really difficult tumbling pass, but no problem with that. And sometimes what we see too in gymnastics is during a routine, if you make a little mistake or you have a short landing early on in the routine, you're constantly thinking, oh, I have to make it up in your head, and it gets difficult. It's something that you really have to learn how to control and just be able to do your normal gymnastics even through those mistakes. You don't want to go too conservative, because of a previous mistake. But
two very good passes to finish.
Yeah, Bree did a very good job with that.
Next up on the balance beam for Air Force is going to be Leilani Zander. The sticks have been contagious. A 9.8 for Broshai, a 9.825 for Kylie Green, and now we'll see what the sophomore can do. She had her season best of 9.825 earlier in the season against San Jose State.
A huge front toss to start off this beam routine.
Sophomore out of San Antonio, Texas, was the Texas State champion on the beam in 2018, competing at club gymnastics level.
She's been solid so far. Her switch leap actually looked a little bit off, but wow, she covered that well. And it's interesting because the judges' view is different than our view right now. So they may miss a couple things that we could see. She does a front full as her dismount off the beam. Small step on that landing. But a nice regime for Air Force. They're just continuing to build on this event.
Looks like fourth up on floor is going to be Elizabeth Colton. She did not compete on floor last week. Coach Durrani told us that she had a slight injury, didn't want to take the risk on floor, but now she's fully healthy and competing in her final meets here at Carolina. Family, great history. Both her parents coming to Chapel Hill. Her grandfather was the former athletic director and an excellent first pass.
Absolutely, and what a fun fact. Her floor music does have a connection to UNC Athletics. The first part of her music is what is played before the fourth quarter at football games, and that's really fun as well.
So far, Colton's best score has been a 9.875 this year.
This is really a routine that just gets the crowd super excited. Nice front layout, Rudy. The execution on the skills and the body positions throughout this routine are phenomenal. Really pretty routine from Elizabeth Colton. And how exciting for a senior night. Very emotional.
Her final time competing at Carmichael Arena, Elizabeth Colton.
Gives me chills.
Fifth up for Air Force is going to be Amber Bowl, one of the senior leaders for this Air Force team. Set her season best of 9.85 and is one of the few people in the history of Air Force gymnastics to get a score of 9.9 on the beam. She got that as a freshman in 2020 before the COVID pandemic.
A beautiful back handspring back layout acro series. She's had such pretty dance and beautiful lines. Wow, very difficult, a nodie skill that she just did. Do not see that hardly ever, but wow.
And as Bowl gets set for her dismount.
Almost had that stick, had to take the slight hop back, but a really pretty routine.
Score just came in for Elizabeth Colton. She has tied her career high with a 9.9.
Wow. She's going to be ecstatic with that score. All the emotions, senior night, last home meet here. But on top of that, they're having such a good meet as a whole.
Coming up next is going to be freshman Kaya Forbes, who has been consistent on both vault and floor. She won both events last week against Temple. And in the meet against GW, she also won on floor with her best score of 9.9.
You'll see why, because of the huge power she has. She opens with a full in that's close to perfect every single time. Oh, I spoke a little too soon. It looks like she went out of bounds. But it was beautiful in the air. I mean, she makes it look easy. Front layout, front full.
Yeah, Kaya Forbes has really done well in her first year in college gymnastics after being the state all-around champion in our home state of Louisiana.
I know I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but we've really seen her come out of her shell from the beginning of season to now. And I know she's only a freshman, but you can just see with the dance and her just being more comfortable, getting the crowd into it, it's been fun. Ends with a huge double tuck. Looks like she stepped a little crooked, but the judges may not have been able to see that from their view. A nice routine.
Yeah, she will have that small deduction for stepping out of bounds, that 10th off. As 6th up for Air Force is going to be Kayla McKean. Hometown in Maine, but she went to high school in New Hampshire and was a 3-time state champion. And last week, she had an amazing performance on beam with a score of 9.9.
We'll see if she can replicate that tonight.
And so far, Air Force's best rotation today has been on the beam.
That speaks volumes as well. I know we've said how beam is such a tough event, but it's a really tough event to end on. So to see them, yeah, to see them coming out, it being one of their strongest, it's just a huge confidence booster. Just have a dismount after this. Leap combination, nicely done. A nice piked gainer off the end of the beam. Fought through that routine, like you said, on that series. Could have easily taken a fall on that, but instead had sticky feet.
On floor for Carolina, Julia Noer.
Up next for Carolina on the floor is going to be Julia Noer.
This is where she can really show off her aggressive and big gymnastics. We'll see that through her tumbling. First pass is going to be a really big double pike. Huge. Very controlled landing.
Afterwards. She's like, yeah, I got it.
I love the confidence. Next pass, front full to front layout. I think she did another head nod to her teammates on that. The Tar Heels are definitely going to be looking for a big score from her on this routine. And so far, she is on track. Just has one more tumbling pass left. Huge double talk to finish the routine. Wow, basically had the stick on that. She almost went for the lunge, but then was like, hey, I don't think I need to move my feet. Wow, great routine.
What a finish for North Carolina on floor is Julia Noer has her best performance today, as we do have Still a couple of exhibition performances. And the score is in. It's a 9.95 for Julia Noer.
What a way to put an exclamation point on the Tar Heels floor lineup. That's going to be a big score for them. Over on the beam, we saw a fall on that acro series. She was just off. Couldn't quite save it. A gainer full off the side. Finished off the routine well, but unfortunately we'll have that fall. It won't count though for their total score.
Air Force's score is in. I said their beam was their best, and it showed a 48.7, so their final score is 193.775. And with Carolina's score of 9.95 from Julia Noer, look at that, 196.475, a season best. And one way to do it on senior day, we have one exhibition performance left. It is from Jay Weil, senior out of Davidson, North Carolina. She competed last year on vault and floor for Coach Durrani. And she is getting a nice send-off here, performing at Carmichael one final time.
Her first pass. A round off, a double pike. Nice landing on that.
Yeah, Jay spent a couple years at the University of Maryland before transferring here to North Carolina.
Does a full front layout. No problem on that second tumbling pass.
And Jay really came into its own with how she performed both on vault and floor, setting her personal bests at the end of the year against both NC State and against Georgia. But this is the greatness that is senior day, seeing seniors compete in some exhibition performances one final time, and you see how much emotion it means.
Absolutely.
Team surrounds her, Coach Durrani giving a round of applause. This has been an exemplary performance from the North Carolina Tar Heels. Their season best, 196.475.
That's something that they're absolutely going to be thrilled about. Like Coach Durrani talked about, staying in there normal, the energy just building per rotation, which is exactly what they did tonight.
And and when we talked to her, some of the changes that she made paid off, because Gwen Fink won all around with a 39-1 over Julia Noer.
Yep.
Julia Noer did not have her best, but she stamped her foot down with her competition on floor. Looking at some of the final results, you see the final score. Decca Noitza winning on vault, Decca Noitza winning on bars. Nam and Colton both winning on beam, and Julia Noer with a 9.95 on floor. That's how that score comes out, 196.475. They're going to look to take that, as we said, to Columbia, Missouri next week, and hopefully that'll put them in prime position when they compete for Eagles in a couple weeks. Final thoughts?
I think the highlight is their total team score. Like we said, the 196.475. That's really just going to give them the confidence they need heading into the next meet, but more importantly, heading into postseason. Air Force, a 193.775. They consistently built and had their best event on beam, which is what they ended on. So another huge confidence booster for them as well. It's been some great gymnastics tonight. and fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been a great atmosphere here at Carmichael. Thousands of fans have come to several meets that they've had this year. And if you want to continue to follow Carolina Gymnastics, just go to goheels.com over the next few weeks to see how they do, trying to win the Eagle title in a couple weeks, to see if they make it to regionals, to see if some of their individuals can even make it to nationals. So go to goheels.com to stay updated with Carolina Gymnastics. For my broadcast partner, Sydney Sneed, for our entire crew, I'm Brian Ware saying thanks again for watching College Gymnastics here on ACC Network Extra, where the North Carolina Tar Heels on Senior Day put up their best performance of the season, a 196.475. Thanks again for watching, and good night from Chapel Hill.
Teams, please report to the floor.